Okay, hi, my name is Julia Mark, and this is my literate identity project for my Bitmoji classroom. So, there we go. Okay, so first up, I have my personal definitions, and then in this, I included literacy, reading, writing, and learning. So, first up is literacy. And for this, I consider it to be the ability to read, write, and listen. And I think it being literate includes allowing effective communication. And this is, I really believe, the basis for a successful community and society. So when you're able to read, write, and listen, you're able to communicate with others, participate in conversations and discussions, and really just have a successful community that can interact with each other through reading, writing, and listening. My next definition I have is reading. So, reading to me is being able to process and make sense of the words and letters in a text. It is also being it is also recognizing and understanding letters and words and being able to make connections and meanings from these words. So it's not just seeing words and being able to read them, pronounce them, but not really understanding them. It includes everything. It's being able to read them, being able to understand them, process them, and make connections so you can really understand the words that are in front of you. My next personal definition is writing. So I believe writing is creating and reproducing letters and words to make meaning. It is being able to express ideas and information on a page and using the knowledge that you have of language to replicate words in the appropriate order. So a big thing to me is writing is not just being able to reproduce random letters or words. It's being able to put them in an order that makes sense and conveys what you are thinking and what you are trying to share with others. And then my last definition is learning. This one was hard for me to come up with my own definition for, but what I decided on was acquiring knowledge through direct instruction, but also experiences and practice. A lot of learning, especially at a young age, does not necessarily come from school or your teacher. It's doing things, experiencing them for yourself, and learning from them. And learning is also a process that eventually will lead to a change in thinking or behavior. So when you do something, what was the outcome? Why? Learning those things and understanding why something happened is a big part of learning. And then lastly, this knowledge that is gained is stored for later use and recall. So maybe as a kid, you learn that this happened because this, it's saving that and being able to use that in your later life and knowing why that happened. So those are all my personal definitions I came up with. And then the next step moves on to theories. So the two theories that I really follow along with and believe in education these days is constructivism and humanism. So first we have constructivism, and this is really important to me because it builds on previous experience. You can't be constantly introducing new topics to students. You need to be able to build on something they learned last unit, something they already know and have experienced, add to that, always be adding more. And this really just allows students to make connections to their learning and have a stronger basis for that understanding. And with this, students have some control in their learning because they are building on previous experiences. So they have already experienced this before, and now it is getting changed in some way to learn more. The next theory I used and discussed is humanism. Humanism is a newer theory to me that I don't have as much understanding of, but I think it's one that really follows my beliefs. So humanism is very learner-centered. It focuses around the student and their thoughts. So in humanism, students have an environment that is conducive to their opinions and learning. So their learning is in a way that they get some freedom, they get some thoughts, and their environment is very conducive to this learning and their thoughts, and it includes everyone's ideas. It has freedom in helping create goals, while teacher helps students reach them. So all the students come together and create goals for their learning, and the teacher is just there to help the students reach them. So it's their ideas, it's what they want to learn. The teacher just helps them reach that goal. And I think this has increased engagement because students get to choose what they're learning, choose what they're working towards. So I think it can help students be more engaged in their learning because they have a more strong connection to it. So those are my theories. Next are my views on literacy. So these I have becoming literate, what counts as literacy, what counts as text, and what it means to demonstrate competence. So the first one is becoming literate. So the biggest part to this is practice. You need to be exposed to text over and over and over. It's not just you see this once and you know it. No, you need to be exposed to these texts and books from a very young age, and it needs to be constant and consistent with the access to books, people reading to you, eventually reading yourself and practicing. And this really ties into repetition of reading and writing skills. And this is why it's so enforced in school too. It needs to be repeated to be ingrained in your brain. It is a lot of words, a lot of rules, a lot of writing, a lot of reading. Repetition is key to this, I think. And then lastly, I think you really need that direct instruction for awareness of skills or strategies. So, obviously kids start to learn to read basic words and possibly write a little bit before kindergarten, but once kindergarten and elementary school starts, they learn more skills and strategies. They start to become literate and able to actually write, not just replicate words. So, okay, my next one is demonstrating competence and what it means to be showing competence. So I think that really showing competence is participating and being an active member of conversations. When you can step in when you need to and participate, you can show that you are able to do this. You can communicate, you can listen, you can read, you can write. I also think to keep up your competence, kind of like with becoming literate, you need to be regularly practicing and reading your skills to keep up on these and always be learning new things. And communication with family and friends is huge. That communication builds onto your reading and your listening and your learning and all these other skills. It's all tied together. So next I have what counts as literacy. So I really believe that literacy is a full spectrum. It's not just a yes or no, you are literate. There are a lot of different stages. Even being able to start recognizing some letters is a start to literacy. I'm literate at this age, but I could probably be better. We are always, no matter how much you feel like you know or how literate you are, there's always more you can learn. So, the 5-year-old that can read her first book or first real book is a stage of literate. I am also a stage of literate. Obviously, they're not the same, but it's not just yes, you are, or no, you're not. I think there's a lot of different steps to this. And then lastly, for my views on literacy is what counts as text. So I think that almost anything counts as text. Anything that you can comprehend meaning from and reads words from counts. So this could be books, this could be magazines, reading road signs as you're going down the road, menus, subtitles, posters, anything. I truly believe counts as text. If kids are reading them, understanding, maybe they're making connections to, knowing something from, learning something from. Okay. Next I have the texts and individuals that influenced my literacy as I was growing up and even today. So texts Put Me in the Zoo was my favorite book ever as a child, and I was constantly carrying this book around, reading it, listening to it, whatever. We had several copies of it when I was young because I was so attached to this book. My mom was worried that one would get destroyed or ruined, and we wouldn't have an extra, so we had a whole bunch of them in my house. And this book, I truly think, sparked my love for reading. Even when my mom has pictures of me when I was like 3 years old, sitting down on the floor by myself, just flipping through this book and looking at it. I don't know what it was, but I've always loved this book. So that is a text that has started influencing my reading since a very young age. And the next, individuals. So my family had a huge impact on my literacy. They started reading with me from a very young age. I'm the oldest. And they were just always there reading with me. And they really fostered a love in me for reading and being the big sister that I always have been. As soon as I was old enough and was able to read, I tried to be that same person for my younger sister. So I was always the one that wanted to be reading to her books. And of course, it was probably Put Me in the Zoo, but I was reading to her. I was showing her books. I was talking to her. I wanted to be that person. I was being her teacher. Okay, and then lastly, I have summary of my literacy practices. So these are literacy practices that I value and expect students to demonstrate. Currently, I teach in a sixth grade classroom, so older elementary. For some schools, this is start of middle school, but so some practices that I value. Um, so one thing in my classroom we talk about all the time is to always be willing to continue learning new literacy skills or strategies. So we really focus on, yep, you can read that. That's awesome. There's always more you can learn. So be willing to try something new, learn something new, and expand your vocabulary and knowledge. And one big thing in my sixth grade class, we do weekly spelling tests because, especially after COVID, a lot of our writers and spellers are struggling in that aspect. So spelling has become a huge part of our day, and we have weekly tests. We do a pre-test, post-test, and then they have spelling lists throughout the week to practice. And then we also regularly are using iReady Reading. And this is something that they do all the time. They have to get 45 minutes a week on their lessons, and it's catered to their ability. So at the beginning of the year, they do a placement test. The program figures out where they are in their skills and gives them lessons and texts at their level to continue working on these skills. So this is a great way to reach all of our students. It's not perfect on level for the student, way too hard for the student, too easy for one, too hard for another. It's time for them to sit on their computers and really work at their own level and their own pace. So yes, those are all of my aspects to my literacy identity, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.